In the flickering glow of a dashboard light, Tony Russo signed to his 8-year-old daughter Mia, "One more stop, then home for cartoons," and her tiny fingers flashed back a heart shape that made the long night shift feel worth every mile. But nothing prepared him for the mansion door that swung open to reveal 11-year-old Clara Grant, eyes wide with pizza hunger, signing "hot" with such perfect urgency that Tony's world tilted, because the girl behind those signing hands was the senator's deaf daughter, and her broken hearing aid dangled like a silent scream. Tony's heart slammed against his ribs the way it did every time Mia's cochlear implant battery died mid-sentence. He saw the same panic in Clara's face, the same isolation that had taught him sign language at 3 a.m. over library books and YouTube tutorials after his wife walked out, leaving him a single dad with a deaf toddler and a Domino's visor. The marble foyer of Senator Grant's Georgetown mansion smelled of old money and lemon polish, but all Tony smelled was the garlic knot steam curling from the insulated bag. And when Clara's hearing aid emitted a pathetic beep and went dark, her lower lip trembled exactly like Mia's did the first time the world went mute at daycare. Tony knelt, pizza box balanced on one knee, and signed slow and clear, "I fix. Okay?" Clara nodded, blonde curls bouncing, and the butler hovering nearby looked ready to call security. But Tony already had a paperclip from the coupon stack in his pocket, the same kind he used to jury-rig Mia's processor when the $200 replacement part was 3 paychecks away. His fingers moved with the muscle memory of 1,000 late-night repairs, twisting the metal just so, bypassing the corroded battery contact, and when the device chirped back to life, Clara gasped, a sound so small yet so huge that echoed off the vaulted ceiling like a gunshot in church. The first thing she heard was the pizza sizzle from the box Tony still held, that satisfying hiss of cheese bubbling, and her eyes flew open wider than the mansion's crystal chandelier. But then footsteps thundered down the grand staircase, and Senator Grant burst in, tie askew, phone glued to his ear, barking orders about some vote on the Hill. And without thinking, he shouted, "Clara, honey, I'm sorry I was never home." And those words, his voice, raw and cracked with guilt, were the second sound to pierce 11 years of silence, and Clara's knees buckled. Tony caught her before she hit the Italian tile, pizza box miraculously upright, and Clara's hands flew in frantic signs. "Daddy? Daddy voice?" While tears carved clean paths through the flour dust on Tony's cheek, because he knew that sound, knew the earthquake of hearing a parent's love for the first time. Senator Grant froze mid-stride, phone slipping from his fingers to clatter on marble, and for one endless second, the only noise was Clara's ragged breathing and the distant hum of DC traffic beyond the gates, until she launched herself at her father, arms around his neck, sobbing "Daddy," in a voice rusty from disuse, but perfect in its miracle. Tony backed away, visor low, ready to vanish into the night like every other delivery ghost, but the senator's hand shot out and gripped his wrist with the desperation of a man drowning. "Wait, please, what did you do?" And Tony, voice thick, signed and spoke at once. "Paperclip, battery contact. My daughter, same." The words hung in the air like incense, and Clara, still clinging to her father, reached back for Tony's hand, signing "thank you" with fingers that trembled like leaves in a storm. The butler finally closed his mouth and took the pizza, setting it on a side table worth more than Tony's car. And Senator Grant, powerful man who argued with presidents, knelt too, eye level with the delivery guy in the red and blue polo, and whispered, "You gave me my daughter's voice." And Tony shrugged, embarrassed, because heroes don't wear visors. They just keep the pizza hot in the kids' hearing. But Clara wouldn't let go of Tony's hand, pulling him toward the kitchen, where the aroma of pepperoni mingled with fresh tears. And she signed rapid fire, "Your daughter deaf too? Show me picture." So Tony fumbled his phone from his pocket, grease-smudged screen lighting up Mia's gap-toothed grin from last Halloween, fairy wings and cochlear implants sparkling under porch lights, and Clara squealed, an actual squeal that made the senator flinch in wonder, and signed "beautiful" so fast her hands blurred. Tony's chest ached with something bigger than pride. It was recognition, the rare moment another human saw his daily battle and called it beautiful instead of tragic. The senator watched them, face crumpling like wet paper, and muttered, "I've been in session while she learned to read lips." And Tony, without meaning to, signed back, "Kids forgive. Just show up." And the words landed like a gavel. Outside, the Domino scooter cooled with soft ticks, but inside, time stretched elastic. Clara dragged Tony to the living room where a grand piano gathered dust, and she pressed middle C, the note blooming pure and round, and her eyes rolled back in bliss at the vibration turned sound. Then she signed play to Tony, who laughed, actually laughed, a sound he hadn't made since Mia's mom left, and sat at the bench, fingers rusty but remembering the lullaby he hummed through sign every night. The senator leaned in the doorway, arms crossed tight like he was holding himself together, and when Clara leaned her head on Tony's shoulder mid-song, the man's knees nearly gave out. Hours slipped away. The pizza grew cold, but nobody cared, because Clara was narrating her entire life in a voice that cracked and soared, telling Tony the time she thought thunder was the sky bowling, about how her dad's hug smelled like Senate leather chairs, and every word was a firework. Tony taught her the sign for pepperoni, and she taught him the sign for lonely. And when Mia's bedtime text buzzed, his babysitter reminding him of the 10 o'clock curfew, Tony stood, apology already forming, but Clara clutched his sleeve and signed stay, and the senator echoed, "Please, let me call your boss." Tony shook his head. He needed the job, needed the tips to cover Mia's speech therapy copays, but the senator was already dialing, voice shifting into that commanding baritone that passed bills, and 30 seconds later, the Domino's manager was stammering, yes, sir, of course, sir," and Tony's shift magically ended. The mansion's guest room was bigger than Tony's entire apartment, but Clara insisted he tuck her in like he did Mia. So he sat on the edge of a four-postered bed and signed the story of the three little pigs, voicing the wolf's growl until Clara giggled herself hoarse. When her eyes finally closed, lashes wet against cheeks, Tony crept out and found the senator in the study, head in hands, beside a cold slice of pizza. The man looked up, eyes red, and said, "I owe you a debt I can't repay." And Tony, exhausted but honest, replied, "Just be there tomorrow. That's payment." Dawn was bruising the sky purple when Tony finally rode home on his scooter, wind whipping tears he didn't know he'd been holding, and Mia's sleepy sign from the apartment window, "Daddy, late?" was answered with the biggest hug, because tonight the world had tilted right side up for two little girls who now knew their father's voices. But the story was only beginning. Paparazzi would camp the mansion gates by noon, and a viral video Clara recorded on her iPad, Tony fixing the hearing aid in grainy hallway light, would rack up 10 million views before breakfast, with the caption, "Pizza Man gave me sound," in wobbly child letters. Tony had no idea that by the time he clocked in for his next shift, news vans would block the Domino's parking lot, that the senator would be on every morning show crediting a delivery driver with saving his family, that Mia's school would get a mysterious donation covering cochlear upgrades for every deaf student, that Tony's life was about to become a headline he never asked for. All he knew, pulling Mia close on their sagging couch, was the echo of Clara's first "Daddy," and the way it sounded like hope. The notification chime on Tony's cracked phone woke him at 6:03 a.m., Mia still curled against his side like a comma, and the screen blazed with 247 missed calls, 1,200 texts, and
a single push alert. Domino's driver fixes senator's daughter's hearing. Watch. Tony's stomach dropped faster than a pizza box in the rain. He tapped the video, and there was Clara's iPad footage, shaky but clear, his own grease-stained hands twisting the paperclip while he signed, "Hold still, princess," and Clara's face transforming from fear to wonder in the span of a beep. The clip ended with her whispering, "Pizza sizzles," in a voice like wind chimes, and the view counter spun past 25 million. Tony's boss texted, "Do not come in. News people everywhere. Call me." But before he could, Mia's school principal called, voice trembling with excitement. "Mr. Russo, there's a grant, anonymous, covering every implant battery in the county, and they named it after you." Tony sat down hard on the kitchen linoleum, Mia rubbing sleep from her eyes, signing, "Daddy okay?" And he signed back, big okay, even though his hands shook. By 7 a.m., a black SUV idled outside their crumbling apartment building, Senator seal on the door, and Clara bounded out in pajamas, signing so fast her hands blurred, "Come see Daddy on TV!" Tony barely had time to pull on jeans before they were whisked through D.C. traffic, Mia wide-eyed at the leather seats, Clara narrating every billboard in her new voice. The senator met them at the mansion's side entrance, away from the circus of cameras, and hugged Tony like a brother, whispering, "You're family now." And Tony, guy who ate cold pizza for breakfast, suddenly had a seat at a table with silver cloches and fresh blueberries. Clara insisted on showing Mia her room, the two girls disappearing in a tornado of sign and giggles, and the senator poured coffee with shaking hands, saying, "I'm quitting the re-election campaign." Tony choked on his sip. Senators didn't quit, they conquered. But Grant's eyes were steady. Clara heard me apologize. That's the only vote I care about now. The morning shows wanted Tony live, but he refused until Mia tugged his sleeve and signed, "Tell them thank you." So he stepped onto the manicured lawn where a dozen microphones bloomed like metal flowers, and with Clara's hand in his and Mia on his hip, he spoke the truth. "I'm just a dad who knows batteries die. Love shouldn't." The clip of that sentence went more viral than the repair itself, hashtagged #PizzaDad. And suddenly Tony's face was on Times Square billboards holding a pizza box like a superhero shield. Domino's corporate called with a promotion, regional manager, company car, salary that made Tony's eyes water. But he asked for one thing first: every store to stock paperclips and basic hearing aid tools in the driver kits, and they agreed before he finished the sentence. Clara started speech therapy with the best specialist in the country, paid from a GoFundMe that hit 7 figures in a day. And she insisted Tony attend every session, sitting cross-legged on the carpet while she practiced the S sound until it hissed like pizza crust. Mia, shy at first, blossomed under Clara's fearless chatter, and the girls invented a game called Sound Hunt, where they closed their eyes and named every noise in the room: ice maker clunk, dog bark 3 houses down, senator's pen scratch. And Tony's heart grew 3 sizes watching his daughter hear the world with a friend. But fame bit hard. Paparazzi camped Tony's apartment, shouting questions about his ex-wife until Mia cried. So the senator moved them into the mansion's east wing, 2 bedrooms connected by a Jack and Jill bath. And Tony fought guilt every night, whispering to Mia, "This is temporary," but she signed back, "Feels like home." Clara's first sentence without signing was, "I love you, Tony Daddy," said over breakfast waffles, and the senator dropped his fork, tears splashing the syrup, because she'd never called anyone Daddy without hands before. Tony taught Clara to drive the Domino scooter illegally, joyfully, around the private driveway, her laughter echoing off brick walls, and Mia rode behind, arms tight around her new sister's waist. The girls made a pact. Every Friday pizza night, Tony delivered, even though he didn't have to, knocking on the mansion door in full uniform just to watch Clara sign "hot" like the first night. But storms brewed. The senator's political enemies spun the story into wasteful spending on a delivery driver's family, and talk radio hosts sneered that Tony was a freeloader. So Grant went on every show, voice cracking, "I gave him my daughter. I'm giving him safety. That's America." Public opinion flipped like a pizza toss, and hashtag #StandWithPizzaDad trended for weeks. Tony's ex-wife surfaced, lawyer in tow, demanding custody now that money flowed, and Tony's world cracked open again. He sat on the mansion's back steps at 2 a.m., head in his hands, until Clara padded out in footy pajamas, signing, "You sad?" And he admitted yes, terrified of losing Mia. Clara hugged him fierce, whispering, "You fixed my ears, we fix your heart." And the next day, the senator's legal team shredded the custody threat with paperwork thicker than a deep dish crust. Mia started mainstream school with an interpreter funded by the grant, and her first report card came home with a note, "Mia taught the class sign language for friend, pure joy." Tony framed it beside the photo of Clara's first sound, the 2 images bookending a new life. But the biggest miracle waited in a small envelope. The audiologist called Tony to the office, Clara bouncing beside him, and handed her a new cochlear implant prototype. No external processor, fully internal, waterproof, lifetime battery. The surgery was scheduled, riskier than a paperclip, and Clara gripped Tony's hand in pre-op, signing, "Scared," and he signed back the lullaby notes until anesthesia took her. When she woke, the world roared, literally. The heart monitor beeps, nurses' sneakers squeaking, Tony's whispered, "Hey, princess," and Clara cried happy tears that tasted like garlic knots. Recovery meant mansion movie nights with subtitles off, Clara narrating every explosion in Star Wars until the senator begged for quiet, laughing through his own tears. Tony's promotion came with a corner office overlooking the Potomac, but he kept one night shift a week, delivering to strangers just to remember humility, and every porch light felt like Clara's mansion door. The girls invented a secret sign, pizza slice plus heart, and flashed it across the dinner table when the senator worked late, promising each other forever family. But forever tested itself when Clara's biological mom, long absent, saw the news and wanted back in, perfume and apologies dripping like fake cheese, and Clara shut down, voice retreating to whispers, until Tony sat with her on the piano bench and played their lullaby, reminding her sound was hers to keep or give. Clara chose silence for 3 days, then marched to her mom and said clear as crystal, "Tony is my fixer, you missed your chance," and the woman left with nothing but a slammed door echo. Healing came in small bites. Mia's first sleepover birthday party in the mansion ballroom. Clara's speech at the school assembly about hearing with your heart first. Tony's quiet donation, anonymous, to every foster kid in D.C. The city renamed the corner by Domino's Russo Crossing, and Tony blushed every time he drove past. But the deepest cut came from Tony's own father, estranged since the divorce, saw him on TV and called drunk at midnight, slurring regrets. And Tony, man who fixed everything, couldn't fix this until Clara took the phone and said, "Grandpa, come for pizza." And the old man sobbed across state lines. Forgiveness tasted like burnt crust, but went down warm. Summer brought a White House picnic, yes, that White House, where the First Lady asked Clara to teach her sign for grateful, and Mia rode a pony on the south lawn while Tony stood awkward in his only suit, until the president clapped him on the back and said, "Son, you remind us what service looks like." Clara's implant activation anniversary fell on Father's Day, and the girls planned a surprise, a backyard campout with a projector screen playing the viral video on loop, but edited with new footage. Tony teaching sign to nurses, senators learning thank you in ASL, strangers worldwide sending paperclip art. When the final clip rolled, Clara and Mia signing, "We love our pizza, Dad," in unison, Tony broke, sobbing into his hands while the senator wrapped him in a bear hug that smelled like leather chairs and second chances. Fireflies blinked like paparazzi flashbulbs, and Tony knew the night shift was over forever. His real job was here, fixing hearts one apology at a time. 1 year to the day after the paperclip miracle, Tony stood in the mansion's rose garden where Clara had planted a pizza-shaped herb bed, basil for sauce, oregano for spice, and watched his daughters chase each other with water guns, their laughter layering over thousands of mornings unshaken.
Birdsong in perfect stereo, a symphony he never took for granted. The senator, now just dad to the girls, having legally adopted Mia with Tony's blessing, manned the grill, flipping veggie burgers because Clara decided meat was mean to cows, and Tony wore an apron that read "World's Okayest Fixer," a gift from Mia who'd saved allowance for months. Camera no longer camped the gates. The story had settled into legend, retold in school assemblies and church sermons, but the real magic lived in quiet moments. Clara reading bedtime stories aloud to Mia, voice steady as summer rain. Mia teaching Clara's private school classmates to sign for pepperoni during lunch. Tony's nightly ritual of checking both girls' implants, fingers gentle as prayer. The world had moved on, but they hadn't. Every Friday, the mansion door opened to Tony in uniform, Clara signing hot out of tradition, and the pizza always arrived perfectly warm. Domino's named a charity pie after them, the Russo Special, proceeds funding cochlear implants nationwide. And Tony traveled sometimes, speaking to parent groups with Clara at his side, her voice now the keynote, telling crowds, sound isn't the gift, love is. Mia started a YouTube channel reviewing toys in sign and speech, racking up followers who sent fan mail and glitter, and Tony monitored comments like a hawk, deleting anything cruel. The senator wrote a memoir, dedicating it to the delivery man who brought me home, and the book tour became family road trips, hotel beds piled with giggling girls and room service pizza. But peace cracked the day Clara's implant glitched during a school play. She froze mid-line, world gone mute again, and panic clawed Tony's throat as he sprinted backstage, paperclip already in hand, but the internal device needed surgery, not street fixes. Doctors warned of risks, and Clara, now 12 and fierce, signed, I choose sound. But nights before the operation, she crawled into Tony's bed like the first night, whispering, what if I forget your voice? And Tony recorded hours of himself reading her favorite books, signing on camera so she'd never lose him. Surgery went flawlessly, and when the device activated in the hospital room, the first sound Clara heard was Mia singing off-key Happy Birthday, even though it wasn't anyone's birthday, and tears streamed as the girls hugged over beeping monitors. Recovery brought a new tradition, Silent Sundays, where the whole family turned off implants and communicated only in sign, reminding them sound was a choice, not a chain. Tony's ex-wife tried one last time, showing up at the mansion gates with tabloid photographers, but Clara marched out, voice steel, you left, we stayed, and security escorted her away while Mia flipped the bird in perfect sign language Tony pretended not to see. Healing wasn't linear. Some nights Tony woke sweating from dreams of Mia's implants failing in traffic, but Clara's small hand would find his in the dark, signing, breathe, and he did. The girls grew, Mia 10, Clara 13, and started middle school together, backpacks stuffed with emergency batteries and attitude. Clara ran for class president on a platform of everyone hears, installing induction loops in every classroom, and won in a landslide. Mia joined debate club, arguing in sign and speech until opponents conceded just to watch her hands dance. Tony's promotion evolved into a foundation, Paperclip Miracles, funding hearing tech for underprivileged kids, and every grant approval felt like that first paperclip twist. The senator retired from politics, teaching law at Georgetown, coming home every night to tech in girls who now towered over him, and Tony, still in the red polo on Fridays, delivered not just pizza, but presents. Their story became a Hallmark movie, but the girls refused to watch, saying real life was better, and Tony agreed. On the second anniversary, Clara organized a block party on Russo Crossing, food trucks and bounce houses, every deaf child in D.C. invited with free implants waiting, and when Tony cut the ribbon, Clara leaned into the microphone and said, this is for the dad who fixed more than ears, he fixed family, and the crowd roared loud enough to rattle windows. Mia added, signing and voicing, and for the sister who taught me sound is love out loud. Fireworks spelled thank you in the sky, paid for by strangers worldwide, and Tony stood between his daughters, arms around them, knowing the paperclip was just metal, but the apology, the showing up, was gold. Years blurred. Clara won a national spelling bee, speaking her words. Mia illustrated a children's book about a deaf superhero named Pepperoni Girl, and Tony, gray at the temples, still checked batteries every night. The mansion grew crowded with love. Grandkids one day, they joked, and the pizza herb garden flourished, Basil scenting every apology, every celebration. On quiet evenings, Tony sat on the back porch, Clara's head on one shoulder, Mia's on the other, and they listened to crickets, to wind chimes, to each other breathing. And Tony knew the first sound Clara ever heard, her dad's I'm sorry, had echoed into a lifetime of sorry not sorry, of presence over perfection. The scooter gathered dust in the garage, but the visor hung by the door, a reminder that heroes deliver, whether pizza or possibility. And every time a new child heard their parents' voice because of a paperclip grant, Tony got a text, you fixed us. He never replied. He just signed to the sky. Pass it on. The world spun, louder and kinder, one apology at a time.